Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and today I'm joined, as always, by my good friend / my co-host, Devin. And today we're going to be sharing our views and insights on the 6th episode of The Last of Us, the new HBO original series, which has been phenomenal so far. As two gamers ourselves, we give it the gaming seal of approval, which we often don't get to do with a lot of video game adaptations. But episode 6 of The Last of Us is titled Kin. And before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, I would ask you how your 3-day weekend was, but you told me you don't have President's Day off. But how was your weekend?
Yeah, we don't care about the presidents, apparently.
Guess not. But yeah, how was your weekend, buddy?
It was a pretty solid weekend. Got some good gaming in. There's a lot of games out right now, so it's important to try to get through those. I saw you were playing Hi-Fi Rush today. I beat that this past weekend.
Yeah, so my plan this 3-day weekend was to beat it this 3-day weekend prior to Monday, which we're recording on here today, the day after The Last of Us episode 6 premiere. But I had a crazy weekend, Devin. I went out for a night on the town on Friday with a few friends. And Saturday, I went to my first hockey game, went to my first Predators game, which was a lot of fun. And then I got swindled into going back downtown on Saturday, but didn't stay out as late on Saturday as I did on Friday. And then Sunday, I kind of just hung around and chilled. I watched 3 movies this weekend. It's a lot of movies that I bought during the holiday season, during Black Friday, that I just did not get a chance to watch. So I watched The Edge of 17. Brilliant movie, of course.
Classic.
Yes, it's so good. Then I watched Winter's Bone with Jennifer Lawrence, which is a movie I haven't seen. And I've been meaning to catch it for a while. So I popped the Blu-ray in for that. And then I watched Fences, which, of course, is amazing, based off a play, which, yeah. So I was in a Haley Steinfeld, Haley Steinfeld, not Seinfeld. I was in a Haley Steinfeld, Viola Davis, and Jennifer Lawrence kind of mood this weekend. So
Queens. We have presidents and then queens as well.
Exactly. That's how I spent my Sunday. And then today, I've been playing through Hi-Fi Rush. I am doing a review for it on Critics Play Games over on that YouTube channel. I was able to get a review code, which is awesome. So I've been trying to play through it. I'm towards the end. I have all the passcodes minus the big bad, the last guy.
He's a pretty difficult one. Not gonna lie.
Pop that one on easy then, huh? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, if you have to, there's no shame. Gotta get it done.
Exactly. That's what I tell people. There's no shame in like playing a game on easy if you're not sure if you're gonna like it to begin with.
Or if you're an adult who doesn't have as much free time to play video games as you used to.
Yeah. I did that with Horizon Forbidden West towards the end. It was just, I wanted to get through it because I just didn't have enough time. I bought that game the day it came out, like on launch day, and I finished it like maybe a week or two before God of War Ragnarok came out. Now, God of War I played on the easiest because I was more familiar with the controls, but usually if the controls are janky or if you're trying to learn the mechanics of a game, I actually find that playing it on easy for a little bit does help you understand like how everything works all together, so you're not being like bombarded. But I mean, normal is fine too. It's just, unfortunately, as you get older, you have more money to spend on video games and things of that nature, but you don't have enough time.
Time is our greatest enemy.
Yes. So, but other than that, yeah, I've been playing through Hi-Fi Rush. I'm towards the end. That was pretty much my President's Day weekends. So, but it sounds like you had a lot of fun as well. But yeah, I've just been playing it through. I'm actually playing it on my PC just to get through the rest of it. I don't know. I love the Xbox controller. Not saying I don't love the Steam Deck. I was just in a PC mood. And I got to get back to Hogwarts Legacy, of course, because I have not had time to play it at all.
Yeah, I'm about 20 hours deep. It's pretty good so far.
Look at you, Devin, on the Hogwarts train. That's insane.
It just takes you away.
Oh, Revelio all over.
Just spamming Revelio every second.
Revelio. Yeah, I'm just gonna be like the baddest Slytherin you can ever be, just to lean into the stereotype even more. But even though our house does produce the most dark wizards, but
I made my guy look like Kylo Ren basically, so he's got Slytherin vibes, but he's a Gryffindor.
Kylo Ren would be a Slytherin, 100%.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, best of both worlds. But with all that housekeeping out of the way, of course, we are here to talk about episode 6 of The Last of Us that is now streaming on HBO Max, which is titled Kin, which is a very fitting name or title for this episode. So before we get into our episode, I want to let everyone know how this goes down. If you are new to the show, welcome to Film Optix. Welcome to the show. Love to have you here. We're happy that you are here. So the way we usually get into our review segment is that we get into our initial reactions first, which is our non-spoiler section. Then we'll head into our spoiler section and we'll let you guys know well in advance before we head into our spoilers. Then we'll hit a little bit of trivia along the way within the spoiler section, from just a few facts that we've noticed, a few Easter eggs, if you will. Then we'll give our final thoughts and our ratings, and then it's time to say our goodbyes. So with all that said, we'll be right back after this introduction to The Last of Us, episode 6. And we are back with our The Last of Us episode 6 review. Again, that is titled Kin. And man, oh man, what an episode this was. Coming in and around an hour time frame, or run time, I should say. Sorry, I don't know. I've been, all over the place this weekend. But yeah, coming in with an hour time frame altogether, or run time. God, I did it again. But let's just dive straight into our initial reactions here. I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his initial reactions on episode 6. So Devin, what did you think of this week's episode?
The hits just keep on coming, man. Every episode, they're just knocking it out of the park so far. Really no issues. There's a couple of things here and there that you can complain about that maybe they could improve upon, but other than that, they're just really... It's evolution. We're gonna keep saying that, but that's what it is so far. And this episode is why Pedro Pascal gets the big bucks. Like, this is where he shows off his acting chops, because he is one of the best actors we have working right now. And this episode really shows it. Specifically, the certain scene between him and Tommy, he just pours it all out, and you can just feel every word he's saying. You can hear it in his voice. He's especially a good voice actor, obviously, because of The Mandalorian. It's all voice, no face, so he's perfected that. The story is moving at such a rapid pace, it feels like, but it just makes it more exciting because you're getting from setting to setting, and you're just seeing these plot lines be touched upon, but they're not like lingering, like maybe a certain show like The Walking Dead would, like spend a whole season in one area and then go somewhere else the next season. The show's staying on the tracks the whole time, and they're not gonna try to squeeze out 8 seasons of this, which is one thing that I love so far.
So I could not agree more, Devin. Every single episode so far has been like fantastic. And it just goes to show that, video game adaptations, at least when it comes to story-driven video games, can be adapted correctly with the right team behind it. You have this, we've been tuning in every single week. For anyone who is new here, Devin and I are, we've played the first game. Devin has not played the second game yet, but there are a lot of references, especially in this episode, that are laying the tracks down for season 2, which HBO did announce that The Last of Us is getting a season 2, which will cover the second game altogether. And at first I was kind of confused when they said that, but now that we're getting these major changes when it comes to adaptations, there's a lot of things that they kind of shuffle around here with this episode in particular. This episode starts off where we are finally in Jackson, Wyoming, in the commune of Jackson, Wyoming, and Joel has finally reunited with his brother Tommy. And a lot of the events still play out the same way, a little bit different, but again, this is for television, and we've said before that if you are going to adapt this beat for beat, that would be fine. But I think Craig Mazin and Neil Druckman, especially Neil Druckman, I feel like this has been not necessarily hard for him, but more of a challenge because, he's working in television when it comes to, this is his baby. And, he's been very open to suggestions. Neil and Craig get along swimmingly. At least that's what it sounds like from the Last of Us podcast episodes. I've not listened to this week's episode for episode 6 just yet. I was playing some Hi-Fi Rush earlier, but but I'm definitely going to get around to it. Yeah. I'm definitely going to get around to it, but I did watch Heavy Spoilers breakdown of the episode, but overall, like you said, Devin, it's hit after hit. We could sit here and talk about the small little gripes all throughout, this entire season, but I've never seen The Walking Dead, but I know of what happens. And we've seen time and time again where TV shows end up overstaying their welcome. And, they did not, the showrunners for The Last of Us did not want to run into that because, like Devin said,
yes, if it was Walking Dead, Jackson would have been a whole season. They would have had a whole season in Jackson. I mean, there were communes just like Jackson in Walking Dead. It would be a whole season of, I forgot what it was called, but it was.
Yeah. So it's, I love what they did with the commune. And like, I actually read up on this for the commune itself. That is, again, planting the seeds for season 2. We don't really get this. We don't see the commune in the first game. Like when you meet Tommy in the game, it's at the power plant in Jackson, but you're not at the actual commune. So the way that Neil and Craig are able to shuffle things around, I think it's been fantastic. And like you said, Pedro Pascal, he's probably coming for that Emmy.
Him and Bella, if they're not both nominated, that something went very wrong.
Oh, absolutely. I'm telling you, man, it's going to be fantastic. We're going to have White Lotus. I think White Lotus is going to show up. We're going to have, it's going to be HBO all over again. They usually dominate, or Netflix from time to time, but it's usually HBO at the Emmys. But yeah, they definitely, both Bella and Pedro deserve a nomination, alongside with House of the Dragon, of course, my love, my muse, alongside with The Last of Us, of course. I'm so torn. I'm like, honestly, if either or ended up winning, I wouldn't even care for like if it was like best drama series because they're both great in my eyes. There's a few title time jumps here, which I know Devin appreciates those title cards. So
Thank
he
you.
absolutely he absolutely loves them. But hopefully for season 2 of the House of the Dragon, I think they are going to be moving away from the time jumps. They said everything's just going to be happening in real time. So hopefully Devin will have a better time on that side. But just to get back to my quick thoughts, really, to kind of wrap up on that, it's been amazing. I absolutely love this episode. No infected this episode, but we haven't seen a lot of infected. They've been sprinkled throughout the show. And Craig did say that this is this adaptation is about the people. And we get a lot of scenes, as we said before on other episodes. Mike is not with us this week, but, word for word, bar for bar, that type of thing. And it's been a treat.
I was actually going to bring that up about the infected. That's like the one kind of weak spot, if you were to call it one, where I would have liked like 1 or 2 infected sprinkled in this episode. I know last episode there was the big pothole of infected that came out, but I feel like this episode would have been nice if there was one at the college campus that they could have fought off.
And I think Heavy Spoilers actually mentioned that. He said it's probably not his biggest gripe, but it's like a small gripe that he wishes that was a part of the show. Because there are it may just sound like, oh, you're just fighting infected, at least in the video game. But like there are a lot of great sequences with the infected in the video games. I think that's just my small little gripe as well, but it's so minuscule.
Yeah, we haven't had like a intimate like one-on-one encounter since that first clicker from episode 2. Like those are the kind of moments that we hopefully get more of.
Yeah, and no more flashbacks, as for now, at least, because we have 3 more episodes. This is only 9 episodes altogether, and we know where the story's heading, obviously, but it's been really great so far. But I feel like we can get into our spoilers, unless you had something else you wanted to mention before we get into our spoilers.
Let's dive in. How hard would it be to leave Jackson after that long journey they were on? At least stay a week. Like get some showers, some good food, watch some movies. Like they have it all.
Yeah, man. Sing some tunes, play some, I mean, I don't know if they have any old school consoles during that time. I'm sure they do, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's just, there's no game developers out there. So that'd be pretty funny if there was. They might have an old PlayStation laying around, 1 or 2 of them. But before I get any further, let's just go into our spoilers here because that's what we're, kind of just leaning towards. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is your first spoiler warning for episode 6 of The Last of Us Again. That is your second spoiler warning for episode 6 of The Last of Us. So if you haven't seen it and been listening up to this point, turn back now, go watch it, and then come back and listen to the rest of our episode. So because I was getting a little bit ahead of myself altogether, but to answer your question, Devin, yes. Like if I was in that situation, heck, if the world actually ended up like that, I love how they just took Jackson, Wyoming from part 2 and just ripped it straight in to the show. It looks fantastic. It looks like a place I would probably comfortably live in if we were to live in that world, because the infected don't like colder climates anyway. They more thrive in the spring and the summer climates, but it's insane. I absolutely love how they were able to just recreate everything. And I was reading that most businesses in the town signed agreements regarding the show's impact, with like production paying between like, I think it's like 1,000 Canadian dollars, between 1,000 and 1,500 per day, which is actually pretty cool. It's just, I thought it was mind blowing what they were able to recreate from the game, because it looks just like it. And I was like, wow, this makes so much sense that they were able to throw this in to the show. But yeah, let's get into spoilers here. There's a lot to cover, but obviously, we know that Joel has finally reunited with Tommy, and the events of this episode cover from when they first go to Jackson all the way until they get to Eastern Colorado State University, where Joel gets impaled. It happens a little bit differently. Like Devin has said, a few of the events is not really quick time events, but they're able to kind of condense some things. I guess, we're not showing as much action and or / gameplay from the games. You're able to kind of trim that fat down, because I was trying to figure out where they were going to end this episode. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just, right after Ellie finds out that Joel wants to pawn her off on Tommy and the rest of the commune. But it's like, oh no, they took it a little bit further, because they were in Jackson for maybe a day or two, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they definitely kind of just had a little sleepover and then went on their way.
I mean, I guess you get a nice hot shower, hot meal. You can't get too comfortable, because then you'll never leave. I think that's the danger of living in the commune. You just have to, especially for travelers, they just have to, just stay for a night or two. It's like, all right, my belly's full. It lasts me about a week. We got some supplies, and then we're on our way. But I was looking into a bit of the trivia here for this episode, and I really adore how we were able to see the commune almost just function as a normal city, where you have Tommy who has to kind of abandon his beliefs, saying, oh, we're not communists, and, all that stuff. And his wife's like, well, we are a commune. And then Joe's like, yeah, she's right. But what I really wanted to get your opinion on was the, I think that at least one of the scenes in this episode where Joel is we see a vulnerable side of Joel that we've never seen before in the games, where Joel is older than Tommy. He's around 50, I believe, and he's going deaf. He's moving slower, and he's afraid that he's not able to tackle the responsibility of protecting Ellie, because now he does view her as a daughter, and they are comfortable with each other. We kind of see where Ellie is, she's latched onto Joel as a parental figure, but even when they get to the commune, she doesn't want to leave his side. She does not want him to be out of sight. But I think it was pretty awesome.
We get our first workshop, technically. Joel does a little upgrade for his boots, and then just gets new ones.
Well, he tried to do some upgrade for his boots. I was like, this is insane. He was so frustrated. But man, it's how good was
that scene was just incredible, though.
Yeah.
Just like you said, the vulnerability he showed in that scene, just you could hear it in every word that came out. You just heard how desperate he was, and because he's blaming himself for all these times that he's freezing. I liked how they showed that earlier in the episode with the dog, where Ellie was in danger because the dog easily could have sensed that she was infected, but Joel didn't do anything. He froze. He didn't know what to do in that moment, and just let it happen. And he feels the same way about when the kid stuck up on him in the laundry area in that episode. He just feels like he's freezing, and he's not good enough to protect her. And that's definitely a job or a feeling I imagined dads would have as far as protecting their kin, which is obviously the name of the episode.
I like how we're able to see a more vulnerable side of Joel, because like you said, when they're crossing the river of death, or even before then, when the entire first scene of the episode, it's essentially recapping what just happened with Sam and Henry. And then we kind of cut to 3 months later. It's so powerful how Joel, you see that Joel has to pretend not to be scared so that Ellie isn't scared. But Joel and Ellie are so similar. Obviously, the more time that they spend with each other, and we get a little bit more with Sarah as well in this episode, where it's even though Ellie isn't Joel's flesh and blood, and even though Ellie isn't Sarah, and I like how it's not that he's trying to replace Sarah with Ellie, but he does recognize that this is someone that he can see taking care of, even after they make their journey across the country, because they kind of talk about that, saying, hey, like, what would you want to do after all this is over? And Joel wants to live on a farm and raise some sheep. And for those who are tuning into the show for the first time, you learn that Joel wanted to be a singer as well.
We got to hear those pipes at some point.
I think so. Actually, if you can actually hear Bella Ramsey's pipes on YouTube, she has like I don't know if you would call it like a secret YouTube channel, but she sounds pretty good. Definitely sounds really, really good. But
speaking of pipes, Craig Mazin's daughter was actually on one of the songs in the soundtrack for this episode.
Really? I did not know that. Interesting.
They talked about that in the after show podcast.
See, I did not. Oh, yeah. See, I didn't listen to that yet. But I love how we're even the score, because they're playing with the score a little bit, where there are like certain score sets where I've noticed that don't really happen until the end of the first game, and they kind of repurpose it for this episode. But I also enjoy how we're able to take a little bit of a breather from obviously last week's episode. This is, in a way, a palate cleanser, kind of, but it is more of just recollecting yourself. And it's, the whole entire episode, they change a few things here and there, but it still works. And I think you're right, Devin, when it comes to expanding the story, or like, because obviously with the video game, like, yes, it is a story-driven video game, but you can only spend so much time with cutscenes before you have to get back to the action, before you have to get back to killing clickers and, making shivs and upgrading your weapons. But I really enjoy how they're able to give a lot of these characters deeper meaning, see different layers that we're not really able to see in the game, or certain scenes that didn't necessarily work in the game that work in the show, or certain concepts that just didn't work out for the game as well. And I think that's a very special thing, how I think I said it a few episodes back, where it's like the uncut, or the quote unquote director's cut version for a different medium. But was there anything else? I've been talking here for a while. I'm sorry. I kind of took over this week's episode. But was there anything else you wanted to mention before we get into our final thoughts and our ratings in our spoiler section here?
Yeah, I think we covered most of it. Pretty straightforward episode for the most part. Got from point A to point B. And then I guess we can talk about that cliffhanger at the end where Joel has a bit of a stab wound he has to deal with. Yes.
So in the game, as for people who do not know, Joel does, he is injured the same way, but it's more, I guess you could say it's more dramatic in the game. But again, this isn't the game, so he still gets punctured. It's just, again, they're condensing a lot of things. And I think this is what Heavy Spoilers was talking about. Like, I wish we would have been able to see a little bit more of some of those scenes play out, but it's something I can easily forgive / overlook, because the changes that they have made have been like well done. But when it comes to, I guess, like some of the events that happen a little bit quicker in the show versus the game, that's just kind of how it is. But they were somehow managed to fit all of that into one episode. I'm like, well, that does technically happen all towards like the same part of the game, really. Once you finally reunite with Tommy, Ellie runs away in the game when she finds out that Joel wants to dump her onto Tommy in the commune. But in this one, it's I love how, they had the conversation where, Ellie's trying to figure out, like, oh, is this all what girls were thinking about, before, I was going to say, well, yeah, before the pandemic, essentially, or the infected game. And I think the funniest part of this entire episode was where the day after the conversation with him and Ellie, and he asks Ellie, or he tells Ellie, like, you deserve to have a choice. He's like, you can either go with me. She's like, let's go.
Yes. Let's go, Dad.
Like, she did not give it a second thought. And I love it.
Sorry, Tommy.
Yeah. But
that's also another change they made. What's her name? Maria is pregnant in this episode. We found out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Maria is pregnant in this episode. And this is also where Ellie finds out about Sarah in the game. But it is nice how Maria had another child prior named Kevin, and they were able to tie everything just so well. This is like an episode where we're able to, like, breathe just for a little bit and just flesh out these characters even more. I'm just so happy this exists, man. Like, I'm like, finally.
Can't believe they're pulling it off. They're doing it.
I know. Like, oh my gosh. I'm like, people were, some people were that I was talking to. I did a review with JD Duran over at In Session on their podcast about the first 5 episodes. And I think we're going to do another one once the season finale hits. And he had never played the games. And he was wondering, like, is it just going to be, them meeting new people and then those people kind of die at the end? And all I could tell him was that, you're going to be very interested in what's happening moving forward, because, there are going to be people that you run across that are just going to die in this world. And during the beginning of this episode where, they have the dog that's trying to sniff, like, the cordyceps on them. And, like, that was scary. And it's like Joel, like you said, Joel didn't know what to do. He's like, we've made it this far, not by luck, but by, pure instinct. But when you're put in, like, a almost darn near impossible position, Ellie can't just, like, pull out her switchblade. Like, they're surrounded by people on horses that are pointing guns at them. Like, there's no escaping this. But yeah, it's been crazy. I apologize. I've been ranting and raving here for a long time. So let's get into our final thoughts and our final thoughts for this episode. And then I assume for ratings, I feel like we're both on the same page. But Devin, what are your final thoughts for this episode?
Yeah, I think we covered all of it. Just kind of another solid entry, especially after coming off of last episode. I like how they acknowledged the ending of last episode and the beginning of this one. So it's like kind of a acknowledgement as to the journey we went through last episode and how heartbreaking it was. And we're not just quickly moving on to the next thing. Like, Sam and Henry still exist and that still happened. Just some time has passed. And I like how we're going from setting to setting. We're not lingering too much on one place or one character. We're just getting through this story and doing it well.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of my final thoughts pretty much in line with Devin's. It's been a great ride so far, and I'm happy that this exists, because it's just, you don't get a lot of people, like, there's games media and whatnot, but when you're able to adapt one of the greatest video game stories ever told, I feel like it means something. Especially, it really makes me wonder what they could have done with Uncharted. To be completely honest, like, if anything, Uncharted also should have been a series, because that would have been pretty awesome to see. Like, I mean, heck, Craig Mazin, if you're listening, let's go. Like, let's keep it going with Uncharted. And I think those are, Uncharted, The Last of Us are, like, Naughty Dog's, like, I guess you could say more mature games, because they that is a studio that kind of matured with its original audience from like the Crash Bandicoot days. But yeah, just going back for The Last of Us, it's been fantastic. I love the changes that they've been making, and it makes this world feel more real. And yeah, just a job well done by everyone. And I'm curious to see how they handle certain events within the last 3 episodes. And yeah, just bring it on. Also, apparently, approximately 300 extras were used, as well as horses during that scene when they were all being surrounded, which is pretty cool.
I went on vacation to Jackson. Seems like a nice little place.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, that place looks like it's maybe not heaven, but like I would definitely live. Like I would live there.
It's like the outbreak never happened.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, you're living in the cold, but it's probably going to be cold mostly throughout the year. You might have to deal with some infected, but it seems like a pretty perfect situation. I wonder. Well, they shot this in Canada, which was amazing. I love how they were able to capture that moment or capture that essence of Jackson, Wyoming. And that is a wrap on today's episode. If you liked what you heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice, and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X, to stay in the know. And make sure to share an episode of our podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Make sure to share an episode of the Film Optix podcast with a movie lover in need. And really quick, let's take a sneak peek at what's coming up on the show within the coming weeks. So what's on deck? We have our episode 7 of The Last of Us coming up. Of course, we're going to be covering the rest of that weekly. And we're also going to be covering Cocaine Bear, which will be hitting theaters. This is the last week of February? The last full week of February. Yeah, it's the last full week of February on the 24th. So we're definitely going to be covering that for you guys. And Creed 3, Creed Trace altogether. So I'm very excited for that. And what's out right now, you can listen to our episodes 1 through 5 review of The Last of Us. That is up on our podcast, as well as our Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania review and our Velma review, which I did a solo episode of that. So definitely go check out those and more. That you can kind of scroll through all of our episodes, see what we've been up to this year. And man, oh man, we're just getting started. In March, it's going to be a crazy, crazy month, but we're going to get through it. We got The Mandalorian season 3 around the corner, and so many other movies I'm very, very excited to talk about. Again, thank you all for listening. And remember, if you enjoy the show, kindly leave us a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay in the know. My name is Christian, and that was Devin signing off, and we'll see you all again in the next one.